Hello everybody, today another tale of woe, and don't pretend you don't love them, because I know you do. And in this video I'm telling you about a car that I bought a little while ago that was really cheap and seemed like a great idea, but turned out to be an absolute disaster. And it's not this one, though we do have a few important things to say about that as well. All this and more in today's episode of JAYEMM on Cars. First up, I want to say a big thank you to the people and the companies that enable this madness of mine, which in the case of the people is you, and today is a company called 70mi, who got in touch a little while back and said, James, would you like to test our brand new dash cam? And as it happens, I've been on the hunt for a dash cam for a little while, so I said, yeah, send it over, and if it is any good, I'll tell my followers about it. And it turns out that it is. They sent the kit over to me, which is launching this month in Europe with their new web store on 15th of March. The kit is less than £200, and I've got to say, I'm really impressed by it. Installation is simple, even for an amateur like myself, and took just 5 minutes. Helpfully, for larger or longer cars like the MG, they also include ample cabling to attach the rear-mounted camera. The unit feels very well built and of high quality. At the heart of the front-mounted camera, you will find a new Sony StarViz 2 IMX678 sensor, and as a former professional cameraman, I can tell you that Sony sensors are always the best in the business. This makes the unit capable of shooting 4K UHD footage and also has an HDR mode for incredible flexibility in difficult lighting conditions. With the optional 4G connector, you can also power up your dashcam's functionality and view footage live from your mobile phone. It also enables a function that 70mi call Smart Parking Guardian mode, which will ping you in the event of a recorded incident. Or for those embarrassing moments, it'll even help you find where exactly you left the car in the car park. And I'm actually so impressed with it, I am going to be buying a few more for the other cars in the fleet, but this one is staying here as a nice little bonus for whoever has this car next, and it is going to be moved on fairly soon. Why? Well, I'll tell you in a little bit. But first, I promised you a tale of woe. Now, this isn't the only MG that I've bought in the last sort of 18 months. It all started with an MG ZS that was offered to me by a channel fan for the princely sum of £425 because I was basically a better alternative to the scrap man, and after that I went and bought an MG ZR, and finally this. It is fair to say that each and every one of these cars is what you would certainly term a project. They all need a fair bit of work done. In theory, of course, this was going to be the easiest of them all, but you may have already seen the video that I did where I detailed this car that cost me just £500, wound up getting almost £3,000 put into it in order to make it, well, just about right. The ZR, that is getting its own update, because that I knew was always going to be a big job, and lo and behold, it's a really big job. One of these calipers binding, maybe. I don't know, the car doesn't feel quite right. Oh yeah, that'll do it. But the one that I actually had a fair bit of hope for was my ZS, because though it had some cosmetic damage on the side and on the interior front had a couple of pieces missing, actually I had most of the bits to put it back together. The crash damage, someone had told me that they could sort nicely and easily. The car drove, and actually drove well, and it seemed to be pretty good. As I knew that there were a few things that meant it wasn't going to get through its MOT, I left it with a chum who said that they could sort all of the key bits, and I essentially awaited them having enough free time to deal with it. Sadly, for various reasons, all of which are far too boring for this video, the car really just sat there. We had an initial inspection done, and we did find there was a patch of corrosion underneath that needed sorting. That got done. I wasn't particularly impressed with it, but it wasn't done by my friends, so it's just one of these things. We had a bit of an argument about it, and then we got over it. However, the car then sat there going nowhere, doing nothing for about a year, until it got to the point that very clearly they were not going to have the time to work on it. So, as by this stage the car hadn't been driven, the MOT was long expired, and I knew there were things that needed sorting, tyres, brakes, that sort of stuff, I opted to get it trailered back to mine, where it then sat on the driveway for a couple of months with me waiting to work out what to do. In my head, it was an easy job. Get the cosmetics done, give the car a darn good service, and put the interior essentially back together. Unfortunately, and one of the reasons that the car had to come back to me, the person it was with moved unit, and when they did, somebody evidently mistook a couple of parts of my car for rubbish, and they were lost, including the headlining, which I'm told is very, very difficult to get for them, and I know it's very, very difficult to get because I had to source another one, and the door guard, which was much easier to find. Neither of these are expensive pieces, but they're big and bulky to transport, and so replacing them cost me about £200. And though for anything else that would be cheap, when you're talking about a car that cost you 425 quid to buy, that's painful. It also cost me £500 just to transport the thing back from where it was. In fact, I've spent now double the value of the car on transporting it places. That really hurts. I then thought, right, let's get into gear, let's get this moving, because I actually really like these cars and I want to see it done. So it went off to the same place who have currently got the ZR, and they gave it an inspection, which unfortunately revealed the underside of the car, well, it's just not good. And I'm going to show you how not good it is. Yeah, you can see that doesn't look pretty, does it? I panicked. I'll be honest, I completely panicked, and I thought, oh no, this is awful. This is just as bad, if not worse, than the ZR. There's a difference though, and this is going to be explained a little bit more in the ZR video, but the key difference you need to understand for this one is that the ZR is a bit special. The ZS is not. If I pour money into the ZR, at the end of it, it will be worth not what I've spent, but more than I bought it for. The ZS though, it's a late example. They were not particularly well made to begin with. There's nothing really special about it. It's just never going to be worth big money. And if I'm going to get this car done up, if I'm going to get things sorted, I want them done to a high standard. And I thought, right, this is not happening. This is just not economically viable. Incidentally, that's the name of a channel I've also been watching a bit recently and quite enjoying. If you have suggestions for other automotive YouTubers you'd like to see me just give feedback on, or maybe even do a collaboration with, please put a comment down below, because I love talking to, supporting, and hopefully helping out new YouTubers. It means a lot to me, because I remember how difficult it was when that was me. However, though this is one of the very, very few times that I just wanted to throw in the towel. This car, it had been sat in the driveway for so long, and I'd spent so much money on it. I mean, because I thought it was going to be an easy job, because I knew the car had been looked after, because I'd been told underneath it was good. I'd bought a new bumper for it to fix the damage. I got the door guard, the roof lining. I'd got new tyres for it. I got brakes for it. I'd already spent over £1,000 on bits for this car to sort it out, and I knew I was going to have to spend another probably 2 to 3 to make it right, which is already far more than it's worth, but you know, I was happy with that. Seeing the underside of it though, seeing the scale of the job, I just thought, nah, I can't do it. So I hope you all forgive me, but I've had to get rid of that car. Although I did not want to let the people who sold it to me down. The whole reason I got it was to keep it away from the scrapyard, and I'd hoped that maybe we could still at least achieve that. So I did what seemed to me the most sensible and logical thing. I put a call in to the man who is the patron saint of lost causes when it comes to MG and Rovers, Project Nigel. Now, you may or may not be familiar with this channel, but I drove his rather distinctive Rover 25 a while ago, and Paul, the actual man behind the channel, has been a big help to the MG and Rover community over the last few years. In essence, really, because he understands not only that these are fundamentally good cars, but they're one of the few very, very reasonably priced cars that you can still pick up. You can still genuinely buy sub £1,000 examples of these cars, and they will be a going concern. They won't be perfect cars, but they'll still be cars and they'll still work. And in this day and age, that's a really, really worthy cause. So I've donated the ZS to him. I said to him, Paul, take the car. I don't want it scrapped. If it has to be, so be it. But at the very least, do you think maybe you can sell the parts off it, get some money out of it, and just use that to keep others on the road going? Because I know he really doesn't ask anywhere near as much as he probably should for most of the stuff that he does and sells, and he's been a huge help to me, taking me various places, chiefly MG Rover related, and he's never ever once complained. He is just an absolute star. And I actually heard back from him just before I recorded this video, and he seems to think that maybe he can actually save the car. I said it's still his, he can have it, but it might well be that in a little while, probably a year or so, it'll come back to the channel. And I'd really like it to, because I still do really harbour quite a bit of desire for the ZS, but I've got a few big projects coming up this year, including the ZR, and simply I did not have the room to take on another one, and I had to be tactical. I'd rather spend 5 or 6 grand on buying a good ZS. So if you happen to have a ZS Saloon 180 in a nice colour, spec, or something else that you want to sell to me, please do drop me an email, because I really do still want one. So then, on to the ZTT, the car I am driving today, and I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. First off, because I need to get a little more footage for the integration of the lovely 70mm dash cam. Details and link will be in the description down below. But also, because I want to talk about it. There's a bit of a problem, you see. The ZS I've just spoken of, that I have now rid myself of, this was part of a trio. It was part of a collection. Now the trio is broken, but that of course wouldn't be reason enough to sell this car on its own, particularly as I have just spent so much money on it. And I have certainly been using it. I've put about 2,000 or 3,000 miles on it since I got it. This has been my winter hack, and a fabulous winter hack that it is. Yes, the steering's a touch wonky and the heater doesn't heat up particularly quickly because the diesel taking forever to get warm, but I really, really like it. It's a lovely and lovable thing that's hugely practical and really quite joyous to drive. It does 42 to the gallon, and I have very, very few complaints. But a little while back, a friend of mine bought a car, about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's a car you've seen on the channel. And when he got it, I saw it, I went out in it, I've driven it a few times, and you've seen it a few times as well. And I said to him, as I'm sure we've often done with friends, if ever you're selling that car, you have to let me know. And he is. And so I've bought it. What is it? Well, business dictates I have to tell you that in a separate video. But like this, it is another somewhat sensible 4-door, 4-seater. And I simply don't need 2 of them. So, with the MG Trinity already being broken, I figured, let's do a proper reset. I love the ZR, or the potential of the ZR anyway, but the ZS gone, and this, it's nice, I've enjoyed it, it was a good idea, but it is simply going to be redundant as soon as this new thing arrives. So I've decided the best thing to do is to sell it, and I'd really, really like it if one of you would buy it. Specifically, I would really like this car to go to a young person, under 21 or under 25 or something like that. Now, I'm not going to say it's only going to be sold to a young person, but I'd really prefer that, so whatever age you are, get in touch. And I do think this would make a very decent, interesting car for somebody to drive about. It has its quirks, it has its faults. I've been open and transparent about all of them, but this car currently owes me £3,000 to £3,500, depending on how I want to calculate it. And if you are young and you want to buy it off me, you can have it for £1,000. I'm losing lots of money on it. Frankly, it wouldn't be worth £3,000 anyway, so if I were to ask that, that'd simply be foolish and greedy. £1,000, I think, is a very, very fair sum for a nice, decent working car with MOT, and I'll even chuck in the 70mi A810 4K dash cam as well, with my own installation. You might want to tweak that a bit. Parents, I think this will make a great car, particularly if you're buying for probably the middle child. I don't think a first child is going to get this as a car, but middle child though, I think you're in with a chance. You're not going to be the favourite child, I'll be honest, if your mum or dad buy this for you, but you know, at least they care. You're getting a car, and if it's a car you don't want to drive too much, well, you know, that's safer if you just don't go out at all. Actually, it's a really, really lovely car to drive. A few of my friends have driven it, and you know what, it's perfect. It works in this sort of stuff, and it's a decent thing. £1,000, I think that's fair. So if you agree with that, drop me an email down below. Oh, and even better, I was told the car had service history and all that, which I never took to be true, but it actually is. This car comes with paperwork dating back to 2004, showing quite a bit of expenditure over the years. The car has actually been looked after, just not, I think, by the previous owner. Funny, eh? Anyway, that's a little bit of an update video on the MGs. I know a lot of you rather enjoyed my reveal of this, and I hope you're going to enjoy what it is that I've got next. Anyway, as ever, I want to say a big thanks to you for watching, and of course to 70mi for sponsoring the video. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.